on year-end giving and fundraising. So the notes from that call, as well as the recording, are linked in there. So take a look at that. It has some really great resources to help you with your end of year fundraising goals. Okay, so I'm going to keep on going and really just pass it over to the reason we're all here, which is our great lineup of speakers. So like I said, we are focusing our call on diabetes resources and programs to really help you guys serve your clients and do the work that you're doing. So we've invited 3 different speakers to join us today. So we'll have Matt Walker, who's a community dietitian at Food and Friends, join us. Then we'll have Trina Frazier, who works with the Prince George's County Health Department. And then we'll have Margaret Fowler, excuse me, who is the executive director at Totally Lincoln Care, Maryland. So our first presenter is Matt. So Matt, I will pass it to you to share your presentation, and I can give you screen sharing privileges in case you have any slides you wanted to pull up. I'm not able to hear you. Are other people having sound issues?
Yeah, actually, I don't hear Matt as well.
Matt, I've been dealing with the same thing all day. It took me a lot of fiddling with my settings. Hopefully you're not having the same issues. It doesn't look like you're on mute, so.
Yeah, he's not on mute, but no sound.
So maybe we'll rearrange things a little bit while Matt works on that. Margaret, would you mind going first? Because Trina's not able to join us until around 1:15.
Sure. Let me just, okay.
We can give you a couple minutes to pull up your slides and your presentation if needed.
Okay, let's see. Let me, okay. Can I just share my screen?
Yep, you should be able to.
Okay, do you see the big screen with the,
Yes.
okay, great.
Looks great.
Okay, well, I just wanted to, first of all, whoops, why is it going? Why is it, hopefully it's not going by itself. Okay. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for inviting me, Julia. This is the first time to this group. I don't know why it keeps going on by itself. Let me not, I don't know why it's doing that. Well, hopefully I'll just keep my, nope, it's not gonna let me do this. Let me just go out real quick again, because I don't know if I had set it for slideshow from the beginning. Okay, can you guys see that now?
Yep, looks great.
All right, well, hopefully it will. Nope, it's still gonna do. Do I know how to stop it from doing that? I've never had to do that before.
Maybe go out of slideshow view. I feel like I just use Google Slides these days, so I'm a little less familiar with PowerPoint slides.
And let me go out of here. I'm not sure why it's sort of weird. Let me stop sharing, because usually I don't have it on anything that we do slideshow. I'm wondering maybe because you have it on, let's see if I can. Use timing, play narrative.
That's a side effect, not side effect, but it's an effect that they have in the slideshow where you can turn off and on. I don't remember, it's been so long, so I used it for auto rotate to the next slide.
Yeah.
Maybe check the transitions tab
Oh, okay.
and
Let's
see if it's on mouse click on the far right to advance slide, if it says on mouse click, or if it's checked for after a time amount.
Yeah, no, it says mouse click. Okay, so
Stumped.
That's weird.
Margaret,
Yeah.
you could try emailing me your slides if you want me to try screen sharing for you. Not sure if I'll have any more luck, but
all right, let me try it one more time. And maybe I'll just talk really, really fast. let's see, let's do it from the beginning here. Let me just see if it's gonna.
Anything here? There we go.
Yay. It's a day of technology challenges, so.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say thank you very quickly. What we're going to talk about today is just educating, empowering, and engaging. This is going to be crazy.
Margaret, we can also jump back over to Matt since his audio is working now and then loop back to you if that's better.
That may be good. That way I'll get it figured out. I'm sorry. It's just.
No worries, not a problem.
Sorry about that. I have given presentations from this computer and never had an issue with the microphone before, so that's fun. Yeah, so like I said, my name is Matthew Walker. I hope you're hearing me now. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a registered dietitian and a community dietitian at Food and Friends, which is the only provider of medically tailored meals to, and the only food is medicine organization in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. Am I able to share my screen? I am now. Here we go. Let's bring this up. Okay. And I was asked to talk a little bit about both our organization and in general, tailoring food distribution to a diabetic population. So that's what I'm going to do. So like I mentioned, we are a food is medicine organization. So we believe that food and nutrition play a vital role in the care of disease, specifically for us, chronic disease. So we provide meals and nutrition counseling to clients living with chronic diseases in our area. These chronic diseases include cystic fibrosis, COPD, HIV/AIDS, which is what we were originally founded to combat. Cancer, we work with an insurance group to provide care to pregnant clients, and of course, diabetes. So first thing we do, we help provide food security. So many of our clients, largely due to the social determinants of health, end up being on the poorer side and the less food secure side, just because living that way tends to put you at more risk of chronic diseases, and therefore that's a larger portion of our clientele. So being able to provide food to these clients is sometimes the best way that they can get it, and so they can save their money for other important things like housing, healthcare, whatever it happens to be. Hand in hand with that is food provision. Our clients are not income restricted. So even though a large portion of them may be food insecure, we don't have an income limit on who we serve. So for many people, they may have the money to afford food, but they're on chemotherapy for cancer and they are tired and don't feel like getting up and putting in that level of effort in order to go get food. Or we provide either groceries or home delivered meals. So for some people, they may be able to afford getting groceries, but they are too tired to stand up and prepare food, but they may have the means to stand up and microwave something that they can eat that we've made for them, they can save in their freezer and be able to do that. It's also important to note, especially over the last few years, that many of our clients, including the HIV/AIDS population and those undergoing cancer treatment, would be immunocompromised. So they absolutely would not have wanted to leave their homes during a pandemic. We help our clients understand the connections between food and health. So that is my primary role and those of the other dietitian and that of the other dietitians on staff. We help provide nutrition counseling individualized to each patient to talk to them about how the food that we're sending can help promote their health and help work with their condition. And we tailor that around both the condition that they have and the medications that they're taking for that condition. And we all work together to try and form individualized goals for each of our clients that accept our counseling to help improve their quality of life. Sometimes those goals are going to be more statistical. We may be saying, we need you to eat this many veggies this time of day. We need you to regain this number of pounds. And sometimes they're just more basic. A lot of my clients talk a lot about wanting to learn to cook, and that becomes a vital way in which they can start eating better foods for them, is if they're actually making them and they're able to feel empowered to use the fresh produce that we send to help them make meals. So we build meal plans of 2 different kinds. So first, as I mentioned, is our home delivered meals. These are frozen. They end up looking a little bit like TV dinners. They're in these black trays. I should have grabbed one, but they're sectioned out trays with a plastic sheet over top of them that are flash frozen and then sent out to our clients to store and then heat up however they wish to. So the dietitians on staff collaborate with the chefs. It's a little bit of a push-pull. Obviously, we're all trying to make meals that are both tasty and going to be healthy. We are starting with the basics of kind of low sodium, which can go against a lot of chef training, is that you really need to salt things to taste. So that can sometimes be a little bit of a push-pull, but we want low salt, whole grains, and a good balance of carbohydrates, proteins, fiber, and vegetables, and good healthy fats. And from there, we modify those meals we modify which meals a client can receive based on their goals for their individual condition. So for our chronic kidney disease patients, we reduce the potassium and phosphorus, and we choose to only send those meals that have lower levels of potassium and phosphorus. For our clients who may have GI issues and are on our GI friendly diet, we tend to reduce our gastric irritants. So we take out some of our legumes and beans and things like that, and try and reduce the amount of fiber that we end up sending with that, because that can all irritate someone's digestive tract who's sensitive to that kind of thing. And our other plan is our groceries to go. So that is 4 bags sent every 2 weeks full of mostly dry goods that can sit on the shelf, sit on the pantry. Again, starting with basics of low sodium, whole grains, and low saturated fat. So that's going to be a lot of things like canned veggies, canned beans, canned meats, might be boxes of pasta, cereal, canisters of oatmeal, sauces, condiments, things along that line. And we also send, along with that, a bag of produce, and we have an optional bag of frozen proteins. So for our vegetarians, that's frozen veggie burgers. For our non-vegetarians, that would be turkey burgers, fish, and chicken breasts. So when we are customizing these bags and these meals for diabetics, some of the things that we really want to emphasize within the plan to get food out to a diabetic population is to first emphasize complex carbohydrates. So that includes things like whole grains. You frequently hear the phrase, only eat brown foods instead of white foods. That's not strictly true, but it is a helpful little guideline. So we're trying to make sure that the grains that we send out are whole grains. So that can be both the processed products like pasta or bread, making sure that they're made with whole grain flour, or we're sending out things like oatmeal. That's already a whole grain. It's literally the whole grain. We include things like starchy vegetables. We try and emphasize those, especially that we can keep the outside on. So think like red potatoes, sweet potatoes, things like that. And then some other vegetables that don't get thought of as commonly, but things like carrots and turnips and peas are all starchy vegetables. They're going to have some of that carbohydrate for our diabetic clients, but they are also going to contain a good amount of micronutrients and fiber that will go with them. And that also includes legumes, another good source of some carbohydrate that comes with it, but also good fiber, good micronutrients. We want to be sending those out. We try to limit added sugars. This is especially important, I think, in our groceries to go program, because we want to make sure that a lot of the stuff that we send doesn't come with sugar already added in it. This is not the same as total sugar. So some foods naturally come with sugar in them. Think fruit, think natural dairy products are all going to come with some level of sugar in it, but we want to minimize the amount that's being added into it during processing. So when we say we're sending oatmeal, we want to send canisters of just oats, not necessarily Quakers, ready to eat banana nut or strawberries and cream that have had a lot of sweeteners added to it already. We send yogurt out with our home delivered meals as one of the breakfast options that we send, but we try and make sure that that is yogurt that hasn't had sugar added to it. It's like 5% Greek type yogurt that hasn't had any fruit on the bottom. There's no syrup in there, anything like that. So we're trying to minimize the added sugar in the food before we send it to the client, which is helpful for keeping their blood sugar at a reasonable level. We really want to include a lot of non-starchy vegetables. So that's a lot of the purpose of the produce bag that we send, the canned veggies that we send, and we try and make sure that just about half of the meal trays are occupied by non-starchy vegetables. So that's things like your leafy greens, green beans, broccoli, carrots, other cruciferous vegetables like that. Things that are going to have a negligible amount of carbohydrate in them other than fiber, because that fiber, when eaten with the meal, can help kind of smooth out the curve of raising someone's blood sugar and kind of keep that going a little bit farther along. It also helps keep them full a little bit longer, so they're less inclined to go back and eat additional food after they've finished a meal. And finally, want to make sure that we're mindful when we're giving out, again, especially for giving out things at like a food bank or shelf stable items, to be mindful of the condiments and sauces we send, because we do want to make sure that they're getting things that they can season their food with so they can enjoy what they're eating. But things like ketchup and barbecue sauce come with a good amount of sugar. So just being mindful of the sugars that we don't necessarily think of as being a sugary product. Like barbecue sauce is a savory food, but a lot of it can have a lot of sugar in it. So it's trying to find things like that to kind of keep an eye on. For meal construction, when we're working for our home delivered meals, or if this was to a soup kitchen, wherever happened to be making meals for a diabetic population, some of the considerations, one of the things that we'll generally talk to our clients about is looking at the MyPlate guide, which is fairly how we follow our meals are constructed. So half of the meal, half of the plate, half of the home delivered meal tray should be those non-starchy veggies that I just talked about, and trying to work with clients to see which ones they like. I think has become a big thing. A lot of people are picky about their vegetables. So trying to work with them to identify things that they already like and say, cool, that's a good one. Let's fill half your plate up with that, is a really good way to go about it. Then we want a good portion of grains, but not a huge portion. And again, if we can get those to be complex carbohydrates, so they don't necessarily have to be grains, they can be those potatoes with skin on, they can be turnips, carrots, whatever it happens to be. But having that good source of some carbohydrate, especially if it's complex, is a great thing. Having a good source of protein there is good. That can be animal protein. It can be plant-based protein. It's worth noting if it's going to be a plant-based protein, like a legume, like beans, soy product like tofu, that's going to contain some more carbohydrate in that. So that's something to kind of balance right there. It's something that any vegetarian diabetic should certainly be aware of. And then, filling in a little bit with fruit and dairy. So that's, again, those are again, all going to contain some level of carbohydrate. So portion control is very important. We're going for about 3 to 4 servings of carbohydrate per meal. A serving being counted normally for carbohydrate counting is 15 grams. Now, obviously, telling people who don't necessarily have a food scale, don't have any metric of what 15 grams is like, doesn't help them that much. But if we're the ones planning it out, we're able to be a little bit more precise about that kind of thing. So that's why we like to use the MyPlate guide for counseling, because it's easier to picture a plate in your head. But if we're constructing the meals, then we can be a little bit more precise. And then finally, accounting for dessert is always important. I don't believe that people should be denying themselves dessert, because it's part of what makes life worth living. So for our diabetic clients who are, I would never tell a diabetic client that I don't want them eating dessert. I might say you might not need to do it every night, but making sure that if they're going to have some kind of sweet dessert, again, emphasizing portion control, and then just saying, hey, maybe during the meal, you know, you don't have a grain with this meal. You don't have a dinner roll with this meal because you're going to have a little piece of cake afterwards. So just trying to account for that in the meal rather than having it become an extra thing on top of the meal later on. Some final considerations that I think are really important when we're providing food to these clients is to provide educational materials with food. So for the meal pattern, like I just talked about, the My Plate, it's a very simple guide. I mean, it's literally a picture. So it's a very easy thing to, if you can provide the information with the food, I think that becomes a really good resource so that when they're not utilizing food from us, when they're not utilizing food from another resource and they're having to do it themselves, they still feel empowered to put together meals that are going to be able to best improve their health. Similarly, providing information on good sources of carbohydrate, or even plain what are sources of carbohydrate, because a lot of diabetic clients that I've talked to sometimes genuinely just do not know. They know sugar, they don't necessarily know what all a carbohydrate is. So being able to provide information to let them know, hey, all these things are carbohydrate, or providing a resource that identifies foods within the meal or the food package that they're being sent as carbohydrate foods can go a long way. I always recommend employing and using dietitians to provide counseling. We're licensed to tell people how to eat for a reason. So we serve essentially as the educational material that comes along with Food and Friends. That is a large portion of our job. And then, of course, at the end, you know, we're looking to feed people at the end of the day. It's better to give portioned amounts of the quote wrong things than to give nothing. At the end of the day, the primary objective is to make sure that people are fed. And then the secondary objective is to make sure that what they're being fed is right. So that goes for whether we're distributing food and the resource that we have is not necessarily the best thing for a diabetic to be eating, but if it's the only thing they've got, it's the only thing they got. Or if you're talking to someone and talking them through what they should be eating, and they say, I don't like eating any of that, I only like eating Pop-Tarts. It's talking to them about, okay, let's have half a Pop-Tart then as a portioned amount and work with them where they are, and then try and see if you can get them to move a little bit in your direction piece by piece. So if you have any thoughts or questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them right now, or you're more than welcome to reach out at the contact information right there.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. That was really, really helpful. I definitely learned quite a few things. I'm just going to take like 1 or 2 minutes for a few questions now, and then we'll pass it over to our next presenter, and then we'll have kind of a bigger Q&A at the end in case anyone thinks of questions in the meantime. So great question from Anna in the chat. So she says that her organization has resources to give away digital food scales. So she's asking, what is the best way to appeal to families in need in terms of using food scales? So she's trying to be sensitive in her communication with them, knowing most of the times food is scarce in their households.
Sure. So I think in that case, you could actually use the food scale as somewhat of a benefit for scarce food, for talking about, you know, as an ability to help stretch food out, because most people, when they eat a lot of foods, are eating way more than the recommended serving size. So, you know, I think food scales are very useful for clients that feel empowered to use them and empowered to carbohydrate count. There's a lot of people that just aren't at the end of the day. But for people who are, and for whom money is tight and food is tight, I think it could actually be a way to say, like, this is a good way to measure out what you're serving up, because most people look at the side of a box of cereal and see a serving size. The serving size of a cereal is pretty small relative to the bowl that just about anyone I've ever met pours out. So I think that using a food scale to say, not only can this help you account for the amount of carbohydrates that you're getting in to help lower your blood glucose and lower your, lower your A1C, it can also be a good way to let you know how many portions of a food product you're using. Like if most boxes of pasta have like 8 or 9 servings in them, but if you're giving it to a family, a lot of the times that family of 3 or 4 will eat the entire thing in one time. So I think it can actually be used as a way to help stretch out food resources.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna keep it going because we're a little bit behind on time. Matt, there's one question in the chat that maybe you can just answer via the chat about how to refer clients to Food and Friends. And then I also got a direct message for folks looking for cards. So I'm assuming that's kind of nutrition information cards that can be given out in a food distribution. So Matt, if you have any links to anything that folks could share, that would be great. I also know that our SNAP Ed folks and team often has kind of flyers and information that they can give out about nutrition education resources.
That would
So-
actually be almost certainly where I would refer you to, would be
Okay,
the
awesome.
SNAP
So if
Ed
anyone from
resources.
SNAP Ed is on, feel free to drop those in the chat. And if not, I can send some out after the call. Great. Well, thank you so much, Matt. We really appreciate you sharing that information.
My pleasure.
Okay, I'm going to pass it to our next presenter, which is Trina Frazier, who's the Chronic Disease Program Manager with the Prince George's County Health Department. So she's going to be talking a little bit about wellness programming and healthy lifestyle programming to support clients with chronic disease and diabetes. So Trina, if you're ready, I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like you're muted. We could hear you for 1 second. There you go.
I am. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Let me see if I can pull up my PowerPoint. Let's see. Let me see. Let's see. Can you all see this okay?
Yep, looks good.
Let me, okay, let me just, this. Okay. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Trina Frazier, again, from the Chronic Disease Unit within the Health and Wellness Division at Prince George's County Health Department. All right, so just a little bit about our goal around programming is really to provide residents with education and resources to make informed decisions about their health. And also, as a health department, we're always looking at statistics that will really drive our programming, helping us alleviate or be in the fight to alleviate health disparities in the county. And much of what we do is either with our programming or with partners and organizations, because we're pretty much all in this together. Okay, quick statistic. We know that 60% of the deaths in Prince George's County are due to chronic conditions that are preventable. So we definitely, want to look at programming that can help us or help inform residents to prevent some of these chronic conditions. And looking at the burden of diabetes, we know that 10% of Maryland adults in 2019 were estimated to have diabetes, but when we look at the specific number for Prince George's County adults, it was 13.8%, which is above not only the state of Maryland numbers of 10%, but then also in the US. So, we do want to see what we can do to provide programming and to partner to educate more residents about how to prevent diabetes, or if they have diabetes, how they can manage it. Okay. Our programs are focused around lifestyle changes and help reinforce lifestyle changes. Many of the chronic conditions are really due to nutrition and kind of diet and exercise. So one of our current partnership programs that's been in place for some years is our Dine, Learn, and Move program. This program used to be conducted in community settings like Suitland Community Center, Kentland Community Center. We've been at Rolling Crest, Chillum. But since COVID, we went virtual with all of our programs, and right now are still virtual. But we have been very successful in kind kind of still educating residents in our Dine, Learn, and Move program, which really emphasizes healthy lifestyle habits. We have a chef at each session that does live food demonstrations and really talks about how we can modify kind of our cooking and how we prepare food to be healthier. The chef takes in consideration all types of budgets. So we pretty much, look at one of the chief complaints that we have is that it costs too much or it's too expensive to eat healthy. So the chef takes that into consideration in really preparing, things on a budget and kind of sharing with everyone kind of what that budget is to just kind of show that you can eat healthy even on a limited budget or a low budget. So that portion. The other piece is we have a registered dietitian, nutritionist that does a segment talking about nutrition, and then has the participants, they have an opportunity to ask those direct questions to the nutritionist about their eating habits or any questions they may have now. There's so many different fads and different eating lifestyles that are in place that the nutritionist can give them, good information during the session. And we have a certified fitness instructor that does a segment on physical activity, so moving more. So really it's healthy eating, active living are really kind of the premise of this program, which is the foundation for many of our other programs that we also refer people to Dine, Learn, and Move. Okay, the Prevent T2 program, we also implement that. That's a year-long Center for Disease Control and Prevention recognized lifestyle change program, proven to prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. We just actually started a cohort a couple of weeks ago, but this is an ongoing program that we offer, the Prevent T2. Okay, we implement the online version of kind of Prevent T2, which is HALT, is the Health and Lifestyle Training Diabetes program. The difference is this is completely online and is offered through kind of a mobile or computer app for participants. So this program is more so tailored to someone whose schedule doesn't really allow them to meet at a certain, time. This way they can view the coursework or the sessions on their own free time and, keep up with it. It's kind of a self-paced versus a meeting program, but it's also a year-long to Prevent T2. Okay, we also implement the Maryland Living Well Chronic Disease Self-Management Program, which is a 6-week evidence-based program. It meets consecutive weeks for 2.5 hours over the course of 6 weeks. This program is geared toward anyone with a chronic condition or conditions that require regular ongoing medication. Okay. And caregivers are also encouraged to attend. Okay. We also implement the Diabetes Self-Management Program, which is similar to the chronic disease, but it's geared more so toward people with type 2 diabetes and their caregivers. Okay, so currently right now, what we're taking registrations for that I can share the flyers with Julia afterwards, if anyone's interested. We just had our orientation session this past Monday for the Living Well Diabetes Self-Management Program. Session 1 starts next Monday and late registration closes on November 10th. So it's time for there's still time for people to kind of register for this program. If you all have anyone that's interested in a diabetes self-management program, you can share this information. And then also the Dine, Learn, and Move, our next session is November 16th, and the topic will be low carb eating. That's a 90-minute session that we're also taking registration for. Okay. How can you partner with us? You can help share information about our programs, you know, either through your listservs, flyers, brochures, any way that you can let the residents that you serve know that there are free resources in the community. We would appreciate that. We can also partner with you if you have clientele or residents that you work with that you would like a program kind of catered just for them. We can work with you, you know, around that too. Okay, and this contact information, you could contact, you know, me, or our program email box is wellnessinfo@co.pg.md.us. Everything that comes to the general mailbox, we get also. Okay, so I know we're short on time, so thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. There have been a couple questions in the chat. So like we did with the other speaker, I'll just try to quickly address the ones that I can. So there was a question of whether one of the programs is bilingual. I think that was the HALT program. So can you just respond to that, Trina, whether that program or any of the other programs really offer bilingual programming?
Right. So right now we're not offering the bilingual, but if someone is looking for a bilingual program, they can still let us know and we can connect them to the community partners that do offer the programs bilingual.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know we've worked a lot with the folks at La Clínica del Pueblo, and they have a ton of great resources and diabetes programs that are bilingual. I was hoping that I could squeeze them in on today's call, but I think we'll have to host them on a future call to share all the wealth of information that they have. And then Deborah also chimed in about some additional SNAP resources, SNAP-Ed resources. So please do share those. And I'll be sure to share all this information as well as the flyers and information that Trina mentioned for the upcoming programs. I can send those out via our distribution list.
Okay.
And then there's one last question from Deborah to share the stats that you mentioned on diabetes in Prince George's County compared to the state. So maybe you can just drop those quickly in the chat while we move along to our next presenter.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Margaret. Hopefully your slides are working now. So like I mentioned, Margaret is the executive director at TLC Maryland and a great community partner of the FEC. So I'm excited to have her on to share a little bit about the programs and resources that they have at TLC.
Thank you, Julia. And I did find out the problem. You know, it's a little tiny thing. You click a button and it causes all these problems. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. Screen two. Okay, can everybody see the screen with just the one PowerPoint? Okay.
Looks great.
Okay, well, thank you guys. I just, this is my first time and I appreciate all the speakers and I've learned so much from you. I'm just sitting there thinking, how can we partner? How can we partner? Because TLC, that's what we do. We build, we link programs together. We love to add value to partners. And how I met Julia, actually, we are working with them to provide a food voucher program to one of our DPPs that we contract with and actually work with the health department through Prevention Link. So our goal is to really link together partners, however we can help them. And one of the things I'm going to talk to you about today is the regional partnership through the HSCRC, and we're sister grants to the Prevention Link program in Prince George's County. And just want to share some windows of opportunity that we have in addressing and preventing diabetes, and then also how do we help those that already have diabetes and diabetes self-management. Before I get started, I just wanted to share a little bit about Totally Linking Care. We're a nonprofit corporation that's supported by the 6 hospitals, and we basically cover all of Southern Maryland. This grant particularly, though, works with Prince George's County and St. Mary's County. We love to build innovative programs through grant funding, and then we have to build sustainability. So how do we help you guys? Like right now, we're trying to build sustainability for our DPP programs, working through an umbrella hub. So we're looking at always helping our partners build sustainability and grow their programs. And we want to make sure that we make things simple for people to get access to healthcare services and remove the barriers for them. That's the key that we find, that is, you know, people, you can engage them, but then barriers come in. So how do we remove those barriers and build bridges? And then we also like to just, again, like with Trina, we're partners with the health department in preventing and managing diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease. And then we also have a behavioral health component that we're working with the HSCRC. Our motto and our mission and our vision is to improve the health of the residents of Southern Maryland through meaningful partnership-led education, engagement, and empowerment. And our vision is to have equity, health equity for all of Southern Maryland, because we know that the health equity plays a part in whether people access healthcare. So I'd like to also share just a little bit more about who our partners are. We have a list of community partners. As you can see, the Prince George's County Health Department, La Clinica is on there. A lot of these are some of our DPP providers as well as other community-based organizations that help us do wraparound services. And then most importantly, you can see these are the 5 member hospitals that basically support TLC. And what I'd like to do today is to figure out, how do we partner with each of you? We do have some funding resources that we'll be able to talk about a little bit later, but how we work and what we want to do is build the infrastructure within the community, utilizing existing resources within geographic areas and bringing and building capacity within those areas rather than transporting people out of their community. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's through these partnerships that I think we can make a big difference. Wanted to just share a little bit of information about health disparities and the diabetes risk. We know that these social determinants appear where people work, play, and again, bringing these resources to the communities where these disparities are helps improve access to care. But we know that the diabetes the health disparities affects minorities. As you can see on this slide, it's the American Indians, Black, non-Hispanic, and Hispanics more than other counterparts, as well as we know that education plays a role, and then also income. So these are some of the barriers that we need to try to overcome in order to help improve health equity. And there's a difference we wanted to share between equality and equity. And I think this shows the difference really, really well, in that equality is providing the same opportunity to everyone to be as healthy as possible. So we can say everyone has access to purchase healthy foods. But in equity-wise, we have to tailor the opportunities to be as healthy as possible based on the person's need. So we want to look at it from an equity, is that we providing a means for everyone to have healthy food, which we know is really the problem. They can have access, but it may be too expensive for them to buy. or they have to manage weighing, buying other things, getting medication versus healthier food. So that brings me today to where what I'm calling, I'd love to share with you and figure out how we can partner, is creating a community coordination care team and building capacity within each geographic area. I noticed that when we were looking at some of the partnerships that we have, we're looking at, there's a physician's office that's located, and we are looking at this right now in Seat Pleasant. We have a community health worker that's working with that physician's office, but they may need help with food. Well, we found out that there was a food pantry right around the corner. So these are some of the things that we would love to be able to do. And I'd like everyone here to figure out how we, TLC, might be able to partner with you in these geographic areas. And I have these different, you can look at the zip codes. These are the zip codes that were designated by the HSCRC that want us to go in and develop these community coordination care teams, bring resources and remove barriers to these areas. So as far as us being able to come in and help you connect with another resource within that community so that we build a support system to help reduce these disparities around diabetes, and then ways to prevent it as well. So my question to you, are you in any of these zip codes, and can we partner? Are you interested in becoming a site for a DPP, becoming a food hub for a local DPP, collaborating with local physicians' offices, becoming a site for a food demonstration? These are fundings that we have available. We can be very creative. And like I said, we work hand in hand with Prevention Link. And so the funding that we have, we help build DPPs for referrals in those designated areas. We're working with physicians to identify patients in those areas that can be referred. This grant is really related to diabetes, but we can also get them into other programs, some of the programs that Trina had talked about through hypertension, cardiac rehab, that is aligned with the Prevention Link grant. So again, I'd like to just say thank you for inviting me today. And if there's any questions, and if anyone would love to partner with us, please reach out to me and we'll try to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I'm sure there are a lot of yeses to your questions. I'm sure folks' ears perked up when they heard about these opportunities to partner and for funding. So please reach out to Margaret. I'm also happy to help connect you. You know, I know in the past I've worked with Margaret to kind of share who you all are in those particular zip codes. So yeah, happy to make any connections as needed. So please take yourself off mute or drop any questions in the chat for Margaret or any of our other presenters. If you weren't able to ask your question after they spoke, we'll have a couple minutes before we're going to wrap up for additional questions. Yes, great idea. Margaret, can you add your contact information to the chat so folks can reach out?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry. I don't have that. I always hit the return button and I missed it.
No worries. And Margaret briefly shared, so we became connected with her through our Prince George's Fresh program, which is a food as medicine program. So we've shared, I think we've presented on that maybe one or maybe two times on these calls before. So if anyone wants more information on that program, I'm also always happy to share more details. And then I see a question in the chat, is it limited to those zip codes? So Margaret, maybe you can chime in on that, but I believe kind of your partnership opportunities are for those specific geographical areas. Is that correct?
Those are the areas that we get credit for through the HSCRC, but as long as it's within the Prince George's County and St. Mary's counties, I can broaden that because it's really where the people live. So people may live in a different area, but utilize resources in neighboring zip codes. So if that makes sense. So what we want to try to do, and we will also try to navigate and connect if we can't make it work, who can? And, you know, coming up with just different ways that we can remove barriers. If you know, if you're an existing partner in one of those geographic zip codes, you know, please help me know like what resources would you need? Because part of what TLC does is, with it being a nonprofit, we can also look for additional funding and resources to help build you know, your program. You know, I think one thing we talked about too is like, if it's a food pantry, can we give you funding to buy more fresh fruits and vegetables? If it's a food pantry and you need a way to keep things fresh, can we try to maybe buy a refrigerator or something? We're not going to be able to buy a commercial grade one, but you know, sometimes we'll try to figure out how can we do those kind of things. So please, yeah, let's just brainstorm about how we can do it. And I usually am very creative and innovative ways of trying to figure out how we can use the money to remove the barriers and help our partners. Now there is one Changing Lives Food Pantry. Okay, great. Where is that located?
Good afternoon. It's located in Suitland, Maryland.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. Well, actually, we're working with a physician. So Tiffany, I'd love to be able to connect to you because that was my first thought in creating this community coordination care team. And we can start it off as a pilot because, you know, we do offer the Prince George's Fresh program to La Clinica. But, you know, we also would love to bring in the food pantries that are, you know, because I think over in some of the areas, they may not have a giant food. So we need to find another way to get, you know, the healthier foods to those areas.
Great, thank you so much. So many partnership opportunities. I'm just gonna put a quick plug for our food assistance provider list for the county. I just dropped that in the chat. So that's our comprehensive list of where all the food pantries that we know of exist. So when, you know, people like Margaret reach out to us and they want to connect with food pantries, if they want more information on who you all are, this is the list I pull from. So please take a look at that. Make sure that you are listed on there, that your information is correct. Because, you know, that helps us connect you to different resources and opportunities. So thank you so much, Margaret, for sharing all that. And thank you so much to all of our presenters. We just have a couple minutes left. I see one more question in the chat. So maybe, Margaret, you can address that directly in the chat to Denise. Excuse me, Denise, are you wondering about the food distribution list, or is that a question for Margaret?
More about partnering with Margaret.
Okay, perfect. So maybe, Margaret, you can address that in the chat or reach out to Denise specifically. So I'm just going to loop back to our agenda because I did have a couple things I wanted to share before we close out, and I can just share my screen so you can all see that. So give me 1 second. Okay. So here is our agenda. I know we've had a lot of great content today. So I'm just gonna loop back down. Let's see. So the community announcements I wanted to share are, first of all, we've put together a list of some Thanksgiving food assistance resources. So we put together a list of where to buy locally grown food for the holidays. Please check that out. Check out the resources there. There's also the Share Food Network. I believe somebody from Share was on the call earlier. They have Thanksgiving food packages that they give out to host sites. So please check out their website for more information. And then the Washington Football 2022 Harvest Feast is also coming up. I believe it's on November 22nd. So if you have clients or residents that are looking to participate in that, they must register. That fills up very quickly. So please share that link, share the registration out with anyone who you think would be interested, and they can register and then attend that and get a food box for the holidays. The other thing I wanted to share is we have this food assistance provider mentorship program that you've probably seen me email about, and we mentioned it on the last call. So there's a sign up form for that. And this is really an opportunity to connect kind of established food assistance providers with new pantries that might be looking for resources or kind of technical assistance to get started. So that's going to close for this first cohort on November 11th. So if you're interested in joining that as either a mentor or mentee, please sign up here, and then we'll do kind of this matchmaking process to connect you with a mentor or mentee for the next year or so. I've also added information on the County Executive's Community Partnership Grant Program. So that is due on November 4th, which is tomorrow. So please check that out if you haven't already. The last call in October was focused on end of year giving and fundraising. Megan, who spoke, who's a development director at IPHI, she shared a resource on different fundraising kind of webinars and resources for you all. So that's linked here. So please do check that out. Okay, I know it's right at 2 p.m. So the last thing I wanted to share is our schedule for the remainder of the year is different for these calls. So we're going to be canceling the December call invite and sending out a new registration link. We're going to be hosting our December food assistance provider call on December 8th from 1 to 3 p.m. It's a 2-hour call. And it's going to be a cultural humility training for food assistance providers. So that will be a training to help you all learn how to work with clients from different cultural backgrounds and kind of get some tools to help you better do the work that you all are doing. So we're going to send this out via email, but you can also click on this link, or maybe Heaven can drop it in the chat so you can register directly. You must register for that in order to attend. It won't be our regular call invite. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that we'll have a new calendar series and registration link for our 2023 calls. So please keep your eyes out for that.